This is the regular scheduled meeting of the Tennessee Board of Examiners for Land Surveyors. Gary will be joining us virtually. Gary, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
There he is.
All right, there he is.
Morning,
okay.
Gary. Morning, Gary.
Thank you for being able to attend. We appreciate that as well. I know your schedule got scrambled all of a sudden last minute, so thank you for being here. All right. If it's okay with you, Gary, then we'll call this meeting to order.
Absolutely. Thank you. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. I'll go ahead and read the narrative here. Notice of the May 18th, 2023 meeting of the Board of Examiners for Land Surveyors, including date, time, and location, has been noticed to the Land Surveyors website since August 18th, 2022. Additionally, this month's agenda has been posted on the website since May 11, 2023.
Very well. The roll then, Jay Kaufman.
Here.
Jackie Dillahay.
Here.
Gary Clark.
Here.
And then Kevin Martin.
Here.
All right. We have quorum. I think we're ready for the agenda.
We have an agenda that was published, and I trust that all the members here have it. I've had an opportunity to review it. Any changes need to be made that you're aware of? All right, hearing none. Do we need to vote for the agenda? All right. All those by voice vote only, all those in favor of approving the agenda as published, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the agenda passes. All right, with that, the February minutes, again, that was included in your packet. I trust that you've all had an opportunity to review. Any changes, corrections, revisions to be made? Hearing none.
I'm just going to move. We approve.
We'll take that motion. Is there a second?
I second.
All right, all those in favor of approving the February minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very nice. That was easy. Moving through at a good pace. Do we know if Jimmy Cleveland from TAPS is on the line? He said he was going to call in. And I know.
Yes, sir, I'm here.
There you are. Good morning, Jimmy.
Good morning, everybody. How are y'all doing today?
Doing good. How's Memphis treating you?
It's doing well today. Doing well. Still quiet, so that's a good thing.
Oh, it's early. You just wait.
Yes, sir.
All right. What's going on with TAPS? Can you tell us a little bit?
We had of course, several of y'all were at the spring conference. It was very successful. We had last numbers I heard. I don't know if it's the final numbers. We had approximately 400 people signed up for the actual conference. We had about 49 signed up for the review class, those are just really, really good numbers. We're really excited about that. Our public outreach program that Charles and Benny and Andrew are working very hard on with the FAA students is very promising. We're reaching out to a lot of potential students or people that may be interested in the profession. So our outreach program is very promising as well. So it's exciting times right now. We hope that in a few years we'll start seeing the enrollment in the college programs increase and some potential, future surveyors entering the profession. Plant the seeds now, and hopefully they'll come to harvest in 5 or 6 years, and hopefully have a new crop of very talented surveyors, and is what we're hoping for.
That's good to hear. I appreciate that. Real quick, Jimmy, just a quick question. I know, when a board seat opens up, I know that we request TAPS to submit 3 names. I trust that TAPS has done that.
Yes, it's my understanding that the names have been submitted to the governor, and of course they'll make their decision, whenever they make their decision. So, but yes, to my knowledge, it's my understanding that that 3 names were submitted to the governor's office not long after the conference was over.
Very good. And Glenn, I think if I understand right, there's not been a decision made yet that you're aware of?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. So that's where we are with that. All right. Any questions for Jimmy or for TAPS? No? Very good. Jimmy, anything further?
No. We're already planning for. We got a meeting in a couple weeks in June. I think it's June the 3rd, I believe it is. We're already working on the plans for next year's conference. So the work never ends. So
That's true. Just a quick reminder, if y'all could get those PDH course approvals in as quick as you can so we can process those through and not be a delay to the conference.
Absolutely, absolutely. I appreciate that, and thank you again for allowing us to attend virtually. That's very, very convenient for us, and we really appreciate the opportunity.
Very good. Thank you, Jimmy. Appreciate you. Say hey to everybody for us.
Thank you. We will. Thank y'all.
Thanks, Jimmy.
All right. Jimmy is always really good about taking time out of his day to attend these virtually, and even before we did all this, he would come up here from Memphis just to give the TAPS report. He's been outstanding with that. He and the whole organization have been really good to work with. Okay, I think next on the agenda is the education report. I think that's right. Yep. Has everybody had an opportunity to look through those? A couple little just small grammatical typo type things. I think I did find 2 typos in here, and now that I'm looking at it, I'm not sure where it was. I think on the very bottom one, the Alabama Society, the deprecation of the survey form, the registered surveyors, I think it's supposed to be from. Again, minor. I think there was another one in there as well, somewhere in there. The third one down from TAPS, course number 1161, working with the state plane coordinate. I don't know if that's coordinates, plural, or just regular coordinate. Just kind of read funny when I read it. It may be correct the way it is, but I just saw that again, minor, just very minor there. Anyway, with that, if there's no further comments on those, I'll certainly entertain a motion for approval of the education report.
So moved.
All right. Motion made for approval. Is there a second?
A second.
All right. All those in favor, say aye.
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 And any opposed? Very good. Thank you. The education report is approved.
All right. Looks like we're ready for the director's report. One informational item and then one action item.
Yes, sir.
The budget report, obviously informational, just giving you a quick update fiscally where we stand. This December and March was reported since our last meeting. So we're December and March is what we're covering since our last meeting. We covered all the way up through November of this fiscal year in our last meeting. So we're only really looking at about 4 months here. But you'll notice that it's a non-renewal period, so we run a deficit through the end of the calendar year, and that seems to be pretty consistent. If you look year end over year with some of that trending down below, you'll see that that's pretty on par within the range. So I didn't see anything that just jumped out at me. I looked at the expense ledgers, and there wasn't anything that alarmed me. But of course, I'm happy to entertain any questions that you may have. But right now, we're just running a deficit, but that will soon come to an end next fiscal year.
Yep. Speaking of that, of course, all that comes to an end when our renewal cycle comes through, our biannual cycle comes through. That will be coming up at the end of this year, obviously. And Glenn, help me out. What is the magic date as to when that renewal period starts? Like, when can we actually go online and go through the process?
I believe it's 60 days. It could be 90. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's usually in that range.
I had in my mind October 1st is what I had in my mind.
Yeah. I bet it is. I'm pretty sure 90 is the, yeah.
I think that's right.
I think it's October.
Yeah.
I think that's right. Is there anything just off the top of your head that we can think of that, just to pass along to the surveyors that, hey, other than obviously a reminder, because I know we did it last meeting, we're going to do it again here, is what I'm saying right now. Hey, it's coming. But as far as to ease the process for the applicants in the renewal, is there anything really, a couple bullet points off the top of your head that you can think of, either maybe yourself or maybe Alexandria might even could help us as far as that process?
Typically, we try to track sort of the frequency, the volume, and when it starts to come in, and then measure our messaging accordingly. And sometimes that may be a website we could do it. I would encourage folks to sign up for e-Notify.
Absolutely.
Because that's a direct line to them without having to update their information. We've had some folks were sort of counting on the letter or the reminder through the email, but hadn't updated their information, and then that gets them in a jam. So I would certainly sign up for e-Notify, and that'll ensure that you have that main line and that you're current.
Offhand, is that just a simple Google search they can find the e-Notify sign up, or is there a specific place?
Yeah, if you go to, I think it's notify.tn.gov. It's on our website, Commerce Insurance. If they go to the Land Surveyor website,
okay.
And if they haven't done that, I would encourage them to do that.
Absolutely,
that front page too will also be where we sort of hit our announcements as well, and something like that would be front and center for a period. Should we need to do that?
would imagine the volume of renewals probably spikes right there at the very beginning and then probably falls off. And then come December 31st, probably spikes again, thereabouts. And then, of course, anything after December 31st is another issue there.
Yeah, that's correct. You are a prophet, sir.
Pretty much. All right. Any other advice or words of wisdom for the upcoming renewal? We're good there? Okay. And do we need approval on the budget report there?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. We'll just move on to the next item there.
Okay, so NCWS annual meeting, that'll be in Boston this year from August 15th to the 18th. So we just need to grant authority for those that would be in attendance. So it looks like, so I'll let you talk among yourself in that regard. But right now it looks like August 15th to 18th, Boston.
Right. Yep. Yeah, I believe those are the correct dates there. It's my understanding, I think I probably had a conversation with Gary at our last meeting down in Houston a couple weeks ago that he had a conflict on those dates, I believe, with the Boston. So I'm not sure that he's going to be able to. Well, he's on the phone here. Gary, is that right? Don't you have a scheduled conflict with those dates?
Yes, that is correct.
So if I understand correctly, you're not going to be able to attend?
I believe right now that'd be my safest stance, so
Right,
I don't
right.
knock anybody else out of going.
Right. I know typically on these conferences, we'll usually recommend the three board seats, the East, Middle, and West, to attend. Of course, the middle is kind of up in flux. We don't know what's going on there. I'm pretty much the only safe bet right now that I'll be there. At least I plan to. Do we want to just go ahead and just kind of blanket approval for those three? I'm not trying to exclude you, Kevin, but
No.
Typically,
It
the
makes
three
sense.
seats. So
Yeah,
I didn't think I'd hurt your feelings.
No.
Yeah, I just do a blanket
Can
approval.
we blanket approve
Yes,
the
sir.
three seats, the East, Middle, West, and then figure it out when it gets close?
What I do is I have to report as the NBA who's coming or
Right.
who has
Right.
authority to come,
Right.
and then NCWS reaches out at that point with their travel folks, and then you can work directly with them should there be scheduling conflict. So if you get an NCWS email come out of the blue. That's just part of the process. You can let them know whether you're coming or not, and until they book you a hotel and then put you on a plane, you're not going to Boston, so you're safe in that regard. So yeah.
I think probably the others, myself included, have already received some of those emails as far as the registration coming up. But interestingly enough, they do also publish a list of those that have already been approved by their boards. We were not on there for obvious reasons. We hadn't had this meeting yet, but certainly, we'll forward the names, and I assume we'll be on the list after that. But so they're well ahead of us as far as the registration goes, but for obvious reasons, they haven't done the travel plans or anything. So
I sort of, I was the little birdie that sort of whispered in their ear that you may be coming. That's probably why you got those emails.
It
so
could be.
yeah, just trying to anticipate, what the board may or may not do, but same time too, we need that authority.
right, and I know a lot of times staff gets to go with us. What are we looking at as far as staff this year?
Right now it's just me, but
Good.
of course we'd be happy to expand that too. Should
Excellent.
there be other
Excellent.
interest?
Did you hear that, Erica? Did you hear that? All right.
Yeah.
Stuart, did you hear that? Did you get that? Just saying.
Boston.
It's Boston.
Yeah.
Well,
All right. I'll let y'all work that out.
with the new middle board member, it looks like it might be getting close. I mean, it's end of July. If the transition occurs, would they be able to step in?
Yeah, it's really the timing of when that appointment comes. Sometimes the selection gets made, but they're not a board member until the oath of office is signed. And so, until they sign that paper, and that is the trigger when it says on their oath of office, the date down there effective of, and it's been ratified, if you will, and everyone that has all the signatures, and then that's when it's effective. So it really depends on the dates of NCWS because they have their registration dates, their booking dates, all that with the travel, and we have a great working relationship with them, and oftentimes they'll be flexible depending on those circumstances. But yeah.
We're not the only that issue.
Well, in absence of someone being appointed, and I'm pretty sure I won't be able to attend, could we authorize Kevin?
Absolutely.
I think it would be a good experience.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
For him.
That's fine, but I don't want to step on anybody.
If it's an
So if
empty
you go in
seat,
your stead, essentially, yeah.
Yeah, if the new member hadn't been appointed.
I would
Right.
much prefer you to go than
You
to
can
take an
certainly
empty
do that.
seat. So,
And this is the
absolutely.
time to sort of work that out. So I'm glad you're talking about
That's
it.
why I brought it up,
Yeah.
to make sure.
Okay, so I think, are we clear on that as far as everybody pretty much?
Guys,
on board?
we just need a motion for Mr. Kaufman, Mr. Clark, because things could change with Mr. Clark. I don't know his situation. Mr. Clark, of course, you know that better than all of us, and you're on the line. You certainly speak for yourself. But if we would you be okay if we just grant you authority in case something was to open up?
Yes, I am working to try and clear up this reoccurring conflict that I have in August.
Very well then.
Seems like every time I move it, they move the conflict to chase me back.
Well, yeah, I always send NCWS your calendar just to keep things interesting. So yeah, so we'll give authority then to Mr. Kaufman, Mr. Clark, Mr. Martin, and then I'll just tell NCWS that we're going to change a couple chairs around, and you should be getting an email from NCWS. Okay.
That'll work. So we need a motion for that?
Yes, sir.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
There, the motion is made. Is there a second?
A second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Easy enough. Motion passes. All right, I think we cleared that up. Is there any final comments or anything about Houston and all that? I thought it was a great meeting. It was very productive. Okay, we'll move on to the next one. I guess we're into the legal report. Is that right?
Yes, and this is a short one, as you can see. I'm just going to summarize the first one, if that's okay.
Certainly.
Is that okay? So number one is 2023-008-571. Complainant alleges respondent failed to properly mark and stake their property. Complainant had hired respondent to complete a topographical survey for $1,500. Complainant is upset that respondent did not wait for them to stake the property and instead just sent an invoice for the survey once it was done. Respondent later contacted complainant on February 9th, 2023, and advised them that they were over the neighbor's boundary line. Complainant then contacted their adjacent neighbor and allegedly was advised that the respondent had conducted a survey for their property the previous summer, and complainant claims that that property was not staked either. Complainant claims that respondent's alleged pattern of negligence and improper markings has caused a significant hardship and damages. Respondent alleges they did attempt to contact the complainant to allow them to be present during the survey work, but was unable to connect with them, so they went ahead and completed the survey. Respondent emailed with the complainant numerous times in 2021 because complainant was not happy that the survey did not match their tax map. Complainant seemed to be confused about the recorded subdivision plat versus the tax map. Respondent had provided the CAD file or the CAD file to the complainant, his architect, and the engineer on state plan coordinates. Respondent, did confirm that complainant's engineer drew the site plan based on the data that respondent provided, and the site dimensions match the dimensions of respondent's survey. Respondent did confirm they did a topographical survey for the complainant's neighbor in June 2022. However, respondent never received any questions or concerns until February of this year concerning a possible encroachment, and respondent notified complainant of that as a courtesy. Respondent did send a crew back out to the site to locate the house complainant was building to verify the structure placement. Respondent told the complainant in an email and on the drawing that they did not set the right rear corner. It appeared to respondent that complainant added a space between the retaining wall and the house on the left side of the property that was not called for in his plans. That created the encroachment. Respondent provided a foundation overlay showing this. So after all of this file was obviously very large, and so an expert review was conducted of the survey and all of the communications. The expert concluded that respondent did locate and mark the property corners properly. Respondent correctly explained to the complainant that the tax maps only provide information for recorded documents and ownership. Respondent surveyed the property per the recorded document in the plat book. Respondent's documentation clearly indicates that complainant constructed a building without regard to located property corners. The building footprint does not match the engineering plans. The expert basically, in summary, concluded that respondent did not violate any statutes or rules. Therefore, I recommend dismissal.
Very good. Excellent review there. All right. It was a little bit lengthy and a little confusing. Respondent, complainant, respondent, back and forth. I kind of had to read it a couple times just to kind of get the flow of it. But at the end of the day, I think what I interpreted it to be was that there wasn't an error. I didn't see that there was an error in the survey itself that was performed. Rather, it was when construction came about that probably the foundation or the house of it was basically either improperly sized or improperly placed, which is not a result of the error of the survey, again, based on the information provided. So I never could find in there where I felt there was concern towards the surveyor or any error that the surveyor had produced. I was very comforted to see that y'all had called for an expert review on this. I think that was the right call. And even more so comforted that they did not find any violations in what the surveyor performed themselves. I'm going to ask both these guys, see if that's the way they interpreted it. Perhaps I'm missing something. But I tend to agree with the recommendation of staff for dismissal.
I think you stated it very well.
I agree with that.
And I would move we accept the recommendation to dismiss.
All right, we have a motion for dismissal. Is there a second?
A second.
All right, motion and a second. Further discussion of any? All right, if not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion passes for dismissal. Item number 2, please.
Number 2 is 2023-014-021. Complainant filed a complaint against respondent on March 21st of this year and then promptly requested that it be withdrawn with no further action within 2 days of filing the complaint. Complainant alleged that respondent did not conduct the survey correctly but provided no further documentation or details. Respondent denies the allegations and notes complainant has sued most of their neighbors regarding property issues. So based on what I have, there's no evidence of any violations, and council recommends dismissal.
It's one of those cases where the toothpaste is out of the tube, the complaint's been filed, so you have to follow up on it,
Yes.
even though they're like, yeah, never mind.
Yes.
That's kind of what I read into it, yeah. Okay. Well, that's a lesson for all of us there. Then if you're going to file a complaint, let's follow through with it. Let's go. So, all right. Well, I don't know if there's much room for discussion here, but I'll certainly entertain it if there is. Otherwise, if there's a motion.
I'll make the motion and we dismiss as recommended.
All right. There's a motion for dismissal. Is there a second?
I second.
All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. The motion for dismissal passes. Thank you, Miss Erica. Well done again, as always.
Thank you.
In a way, I'm glad to hear that there was only 2 items on it. We've had lengthy ones before, but it's a good thing, right? It's a good thing when there's only. I'd prefer to be 0 is what I would prefer, but we certainly do appreciate your work efforts there. Okay, I've just lost myself on the agenda, so here we go. All right. Are we good with the legal report? We're done there, right? We can move on? Excellent. All right, next item, the application review process. Gary, I know you've been listening in on this. I think this was something that might have been added to the agenda here. Is this something you want to start off with on that?
I'll attempt to, Jay. It's a little cumbersome from here. I don't know what materials that you've been provided with on it, but essentially I had put together a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet that was more of a help to myself to be sure that I was tracking as I did the review process correctly based on the actual statute as far as, number of references, years of experience and all. It's once I get that like that, it's actually fairly simple. It just seemed like I always had to go back and reread it every time. What prompted it was the deluge of applicants we had this last time, which worked. I don't know about you guys. This last group worked me a little bit trying to keep up with everybody that was coming through.
Gary, sorry to interrupt, just to interject, just to let you know what they have in front of them and the order they have it, so they'll kind of help you with your flow. They've got your notes on your thoughts for discussion. That's on the very top of their little mini packet. And then second page they have is the grid that you were just discussing. That was your notes, and these are just your job aids, not policy or anything in that regard. And then of course the frequently asked questions about the plats and what's required. That's on our website as well. And so now back to you, sir.
Sure. Thank you, Glenn. Yes, that, and to be perfectly clear, that is all part of what prompted this was since I'm a new member to the board with only a couple of years on it, and we're fixing to have someone come on, be appointed, likely to be new as well. And we don't have the years of experience that both Jackie and Jay have on it. I think both of you have got a 12-year term under your belt going with it. And if Jackie is coming off of the board, I wanted to discuss this a little bit with him while we still had him available for his experience. And the first page it says was just my thoughts as I went through the way I understand things, and was mostly just hoping that the other three of you there, Ken included, because the layperson does give us kind of a sanity check, looking at from a non-surveyor's point of view, that I'm tracking this correctly. And I've tried to list out what I believe things that are just set, that we don't have to, that's the first few things, that we don't really have any of our judgment to come into it. The kind of going to a short explanation, one of my conclusions here is that the portions that we do have the requirement to use our own judgment is both approving the education met and the experience. And which that the experience fits the requirement of being both progressive experience and that in most cases, or in all the cases, there's for a 4-year degree, the path onto it, there's 2 years of experience, one of which has to be in responsible charge under the direct supervision of a professional land surveyor. Which my take on that means that the first year allows folks who may have been hired in at a more junior level than a party chief. I mean, it relieves them of the responsibility to have to come in at a more senior level, and some of that time counts, which I believe is legitimate. They can start off working on a crew for a party chief or working as a junior CAD technician on the survey end, and that can count as progressive experience. But I also think that throws some of the responsibility on both the applicant and the references to elaborate on why that experience should count, even when they come under direct supervision. And sometimes I know the applications we get, in my feeling, they don't really address that and leave us to just trust that since they vouch for them that they've met those requirements.
Gary, just real quick, just wanted you're on I guess the enumerated section number 5 experience talking, because I saw you making references to.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes, and I was kind of skipping around on that because
sure.
I will back up on one there. Some of the questions that I've asked when I submitted this to Glenn and staff, I've got answers that helped me out a bit onto it. There's one on the example plats, and I guess that's kind of going back under 3B, that I don't see in the instructions that was provided and went through where it specifically says there needs to be a definitive statement by the actual licensed surveyor that the plat was prepared by the applicant, or an explanation of what level that was.
I'm interested in the discussion from the board. Thank you for bringing that to our attention, Gary. One thing is where it says on your instructions that we send out that it's to be stamped and sealed. Would that take care of that issue?
I'm not sure it actually does. I mean, it's more of an assumption that if they submitted it, it must be something that they were following the instructions for the application. Is to send us one that they were involved in. substantially. But I'll go back to when I was licensed and when I was, many of the folks that I have submitted under my tutorage to the board, I always wrote onto the plat itself that it was that he had or she had prepared this under my supervision and then placed my stamp and seal over that notification as well. So that's just kind of going to the experience that I've had of how to do it. And we've had applicants that's come through that actually submitted kind of a surveyor's report in which they stated what they did, the steps they took, and it was countersigned by the surveyor.
You know, we could update the those instructions. Yep. So
I
that'll
just
just
wanted
be
to make
next
sure
time.
that that this was not just an assumption on my part from what I was told by past board members. And by past board members, I'm going back to the 70s. And, or if I just missed it in the instructions, because I have to say, I think the instructions that have been supplied to me that go out and are available online are actually pretty clear. That's the only real thing that I didn't see that I thought might be in there.
If I can expand on that, Gary, I've encountered the same question myself. Of course, I've been doing this a little bit longer. Is we as board members, speaking for myself only, we want to see a brief narrative of I, Joe Smith, the applicant, did make efforts towards this plat, and I did the following, bullet point. I did the deed research, I did the field reconnaissance, I did the data collection, I did the drafting. From A to B, I want to know how that applicant was involved in this particular plat or survey that they produced, such that I know that this is their work. Remember, the point here of the plats is for the applicant to show that they understand our rules and regulations and how to apply the minimum standards in production of a plat, and show the board members that, yes, I understand it, I get it, here's my work. That's kind of the point of it. Same goes with the written description. But I don't see, or I should say I don't recall seeing in the instructions anywhere that we specifically ask for that brief narrative. Here's what I did. I just don't recall it. I've never seen it. I've looked for it. I can't find it. I can think of several applications that have come across my desk that in addition to other reasons, but I've said, hey, would you also include that brief narrative? And they've been generally good about replying back with it. But I think you're right, Gary. I think I'm missing it too, quite honestly. Where in the instructions do we say, include a brief narrative of your involvement in this survey and the production of the plat? So that kind of goes to the bigger picture of perhaps that gives us an opportunity here that maybe we need to kind of sit down and review either the application process or just the instructions to the application process. How in depth, I'm not saying how in depth we need to go here, but it would be nice to kind of just do a quick overview to see what is it we're putting out there for the applicants, what is it that they're missing, what more could we provide to them to make their application easier and better understood in an effort to get them through the process here.
Right. I mean, I think we're pretty close on having everything, but you've come to the same conclusion I did. And now it's easy when we have someone who's out of state because they're actually and have a license coming in because they're stamping a plat that they actually did with their stamp, and that's easy to make that jump then that they did all the work. But on the non-licensed surveyor coming in, I always thought that there was supposed to be some kind of definitive statement on it, but I don't see it in the instructions, and so maybe it's not there. But there's a lot of things that are in the instructions that I've noticed that the applicants miss as well. I'm not sure how you fix that.
Gary, I agree with you. For years and years, it's always been my understanding that an applicant that is not registered in another state should attest on the face of the plat that he was in responsible charge of the survey. In addition, his supervisor, who is a licensed surveyor, should attest that Joe Smith was indeed in responsible charge of the survey. Through the years, I thought it was in writing somewhere, but I'm like you, I've had a hard time finding it recently. So, but you are correct. That is the way or the procedure that has been used for a number of years.
Okay. Well, I find that helpful.
Glenn, let me kind of throw that to you there. Then, obviously, perhaps we'd like to kind of do a review of some sort of perhaps the instructions for the application for now, and then as a result of that, perhaps dig further into it at a later point. In your opinion right now, what would be the best process for us to be able to do that? Would it be individually email us the instructions and we'll make our corrections and then collectively report them back to you to collate together? Is it at the next board meeting? Is it at a side meeting where we can do like a work session? What's the best route there?
Yeah, your instincts were right with the beginning option. It was just you would just take the instructions that are on the website, carve those up, send those to me. I'll collate those together, and then we have a work product. We have a work draft at that point for discussion.
Okay. That's something we can go ahead and do. All right. Is that something you need to email us those instructions? Can we just go straight to the website and pull them ourselves?
Yeah, I'll email it to you. I mean, you can get them there at the
That'd be
website,
best, yeah.
but yeah, I'll email it to you.
Okay. And then kind of expanding on that, Gary, I'm not trying to cut you off here. To expand on that, something I would like to do at our next board meeting is the actual application process. When they I always instruct them, go to the website. That's where the application is. So they do that. And if I recall correctly, the link that when they say apply for licensure, the link takes them to another state website where you have to log in with a name and a password. I forgot what they call that system. Somebody help me out. Core? Okay, Core. Okay. And so that's kind of where, I kind of get blocked right there because I'm not applying. Fortunately, I'm enough to have it already. I don't need to apply. So I kind of get, all of a sudden I'm blocked. I'm like, I don't know what these new applicants are going through. So my point being is what I'd like to request at our next scheduled meeting is just kind of up on the big screen, somebody with, I don't know if it's a dummy name and password, just take us through the process. I'm not trying to go in depth. I'm not trying to do that. But what I'd like to see is, if an applicant comes up and asks me, like, man, what's up with the website? And I don't know what to do here. I'm like, I don't know. I haven't looked at that thing in years.
Are you talking about just a status update, or are you talking about like a license verification? Or
No, I'm talking about walk me through the application process as if I were applying for, let's just say, the PS, right? You click on the link, it takes you to the core system, I think you said it was called, and that's where you got to log in with a name and a password, right? And then I assume that once you get past the name and password, you get to the actual application and you can start typing in name, address, blah, blah, blah. What I would like to see is a demonstration of that. Just up on the screen with a dummy name and a dummy password to get us past, and just walk me through the application process. And the reason I'm asking for that is I think it's my responsibility as a board member here who's trying to license these applicants to understand the licensure process, the application toward licensure process. And that's where I'm kind of at a brick wall right now. I was like, man, I haven't seen that application in 20 years. I think I should understand it better to help these applicants. Is there?
Sure.
Am I
we can do that.
crossing the line anywhere there where I shouldn't see it? I'm not talking in depth. I'm not going hours. I just want to see, all right, here's this page, here's where it asks them to do this, here's submit, and walk away type thing. I just need a little comfort on myself to say, yeah, I understand what you, Joe applicant, is going through.
Yeah, one thing we can do is we can certainly interactive, but we can also do a basically just frame by frame snapshot of what those fields look like. Simple enough. Yeah.
That's an option. Yeah, I'd feel more comfortable if we could do it almost live.
Yeah, we've got a test environment, so that's fine. Yeah.
If that's possible. I mean,
sure,
something like that. I feel better. Is that something we can get on the agenda for
one
next time?
thing that will help you too is just sort of as a teaser to whet your appetite, that application summary that you look at. Now that's basically a printout of their answers, but typically it follows that format.
I figure that's what I'm going to see, but
right,
I just think it's my responsibility to understand the application a little bit better than just, hey, click here, go here, and it'll flow itself. That'd be great. Again, I'm not trying to add time to the agenda next time. I think it would go pretty quick. I just think it's fresher for all the board members there.
Yeah, and Jay, since part of my purpose here was to clarify my own mind of the process, although I actually went into this pretty much in depth when I was teaching the survey course out in Mississippi back in the 90s, but it's been a while since I've got into it in depth. And our purpose here, and my purpose is, just as you said, is that I want to figure out a way to get the applicants approved. So a few times they don't give me enough to help them out. And we'll see whether that's on their end that they don't understand it, or if there's something we can do to help them clarify. And but I would suggest when we schedule this, to schedule it on a meeting, maybe even the first meeting, that our new board member attends.
That might be a great idea. Yeah, because if we do it ahead of time, then we'll just be repeating ourselves later on. That's probably a good suggestion. So I guess we need to coordinate that with whenever the new seat gets filled. Okay, so that may or may not be the next meeting. We'll see.
But in the meantime, the idea of giving us the opportunity to go through them, of Glenn sending us both the links and the actual documents, as I think it's going to be important for all of us board members to go through it, both trying to do it online as well as just read what is printed out and evaluate it. That we could go ahead and be doing that, and maybe even anything we find, put it up as a discussion under legal at the next board meeting, even if we're not ready for the new member to be on board yet. But I feel pretty good that we're actually heading in the right. I mean, you confirmed a lot of what I've already come to the conclusion of already,
right,
which is good. I mean, I really don't fault the instructions very much. That was the only thing I saw that I was expecting to see that you all have confirmed to me that may not be there. Or it is, I just can't find it. But the rest of them, the things that the folks miss, are pretty clearly asked for.
Good to hear. That's good to hear. In kind of getting back to the spreadsheet that Gary submitted to us, obviously first I've seen it. I'm going to take some time to kind of review it. Just quick glance over it, all looks fine to me, but obviously I kind of want to go a little more in depth to it. If I do find something I've got issue with or want to expand on for whatever reason, I just work that through you, Glenn. Is that right?
Yeah, and this is, again, it's a job aid, so there's a lot of flexibility there.
Sure, yeah.
So, but basically, what I could see that Gary did, the model he used, and Gary, obviously, I don't pretend to be your spokesman, so you clarify for me if I go astray. But
let me clarify one thing that you mentioned to me, Glenn, that I looked at on my spreadsheet. I call out that the path for it to get the RLS and a path to get the PLSIT. And then the last third column, I say both. And what I really meant, and I've changed that, is that's the application who has a PLSIT and is upgrading to the RLS. And so my purpose there was to point out to myself that they've already been approved, and their education has already been improved, for example, under the PLSIT application, then I don't really need to look that over again under their upgrade to RLS application.
Yeah, Gary, they've got the 2 columns, not the third one. Yeah, you're good on that front.
Go ahead, Glenn. That's.
Oh no, that was just saying that the edited one that you and I discussed yesterday with just the 2 columns. That's the one they have in front of them.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But yeah, Jay, that's I would appreciate folks going over that and see if you can read my shorthand, because it is mostly written so that I would understand it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm sure we all have our own methods of going through these applications and how we review it. Having the privilege of doing this for a number of years now, I pretty much have a process that I go through. It involves pulling up the TCA, pulling up the rules. I got stuff all over my screens here, among the application checklist type thing. But just in quick review here, it looks very similar to the way that Gary handles it as well. So that's certainly reassuring.
And that's
Jackie,
good.
anything you want to follow on that? You good? Okay.
This was really just intended, as Gary mentioned earlier, a summary of 62, 18, and 109. You mentioned, hey, having the statute up. That's always the best practice.
Always.
Is have that up with you, because this is just a summary of that to sort of make it manageable, so you can spatially see that on a grid. But it's basically a 62, 18, 109.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And yeah, it is kind of confusing, quite honestly. The 109 is kind of confusing. It does seem like there ought to be a better way of kind of tracking that down as to exactly what they're meaning, and that's kind of what this spreadsheet does. It breaks it down into kind of a little extra little pathway type thing, which is very good. But like I said, even having done this for, I think I'm on my 10th year now, I still have to pull that TCA up every time just to make sure, check, and go through it. Because, with 5 different categories to apply under, and then based on experience, and then if it's before or after certain dates, and it kind of gets confusing. And I can understand why a lot of young applicants that come in under whatever path they're trying to follow, they kind of scratch their head and like, what? I don't understand what's going on here. So whatever we can do to make it easier, I think is best. So.
Yeah, but I will say though that after going through this exercise for myself, I am reassured that we have a number of ways for folks to do it, that it shouldn't be a problem. It's more of a matter that you, like going into any other career, you have to pick a point when you've decided that you're taking a path and start it, that this is, I mean, we've all had the phone calls that call up and say that I've looked in the survey and I think I'd like to be a surveyor. How quickly can I get a license? And have to answer them, well, it's going to take a minute or two. But the process is pretty clear in my mind, and I think it's pretty appropriate too.
All right. Any further discussion on the application review process there? I think we covered that pretty well. Gary, great looking spreadsheet you made there, and good bullet points of the way you follow. That's a good way to follow there. I appreciate you making the effort and doing that. Okay. Any further discussion, or can we move on to new business? Jackie.
On the iPad, is this a memo? When it says to all Tennessee Land Surveyor applicants from the board, and then it talks about the different categories and the list, because it seems recently there's been questions over whether or not when we specify that they need an additional 3 hours in list 1, is that conveyed to them so that they know there is a list 1, list 2, list 3? I mean, it's not in our statute that says that, but it does say board approved coursework, and this is our method of identifying where their classes fall. I need a little, even though I'm going off the board, but I need a little clarification on that, because for years we've identified list 1, list 2, list 3 type classes, and we provide certain courses which are not all inclusive. So just not only for me but for all the board members, a little clarification on that would help.
Yeah, I'll just springboard to our last meeting and then take it from there, if that's okay with Chair. Yep. At our last meeting, when we made the update, and Jay did the heavy lift on that, and that's what you see before you here is Jay's updates incorporated into that list. The intention, and as stated on the record then, was that it's not intended to be policy or to be basically to be treated as rule or policy, and that it's a job guide or aid that to help us expedite, but we can't defer necessarily or substitute for the discretion of the board, the individual reviewer of the three. And so I think it's a great tool for those that are going into these programs, or because then they know that if I'm on the list, boom, out the door.
Yep. Helps with the pre-planning.
But if I'm not, so then we still have to and again, Jay very well stated on the record that it's not exhaustive. It couldn't be. Right. And there's things, creative ways that we could approach. Like if we could change the rule, but the rule would have to be that's a process, and it'd have to be something that would you could go. I need 9 to 12 hours in upper level courses, land surveying. You could do that, but it have to. If you go down the rule path, then it has to be something that we can administratively execute as well. And so.
I'd just like for it to be clear to the applicants that it's still board discretion as to what courses or where they fall in the hierarchy of courses.
Yeah, you wouldn't defer somebody based on the list. You wouldn't refer back to the list and say, hey, look, you don't fit this category or that category, because then that would be a policy or rule. You're treating that as a And it hasn't gone through the scrutiny of a policy and rule or the process for a policy or rule. So, the job aids are to sort of assist us, but they're not to hinder us or block applicants from being or coming into. So you certainly could say, hey, look, you don't, you're missing some of these items on the list, but it doesn't mean that you're excluded those. So tell me more about those courses that you're taking. And okay, yeah, that's board approved coursework, and that you're based on the total.
But what I'm saying is sometimes we'll see an applicant that's, and again, I know we can't use list 1, list 2, list 3 exclusive, but we'll see for my example, someone that has submitted a course that they believe it is a list 1 course, but in reality or from the board's perspective, it's a list 2 course. And I know we can't say you need an additional 3 hours. This doesn't meet the list 1 requirements, but we have to say that you need additional higher level surveying courses.
At that point, you would take the totality of the application. If in your judgment you say they've had enough, they've got enough in their experience, quality, progressive experience, they've got their test, they're licensed in another state. I'm just we've got a hypothetical application in front of us,
Right.
But in that situation, you could say, even though it doesn't neatly fit into that list, this person has board approved coursework. They meet the criteria as they meet those minimum requirements, and then in your judgments you could exercise that discretion and approve them.
Thanks.
Be a little more specific with you on that. Again, hypothetical. Let's just say we have an applicant comes through not licensed yet in any other state, and has taken a series of college level courses. They believe that they've taken sufficient courses, and let's say in my review of the transcripts, let's just say that the applicant is missing a course in, let's just say, boundary control and legal principles, which in my personal opinion is paramount, number one. Boy, if you don't have this course, you need this course. But they've taken sufficient other courses in surveying related topics, bunch of courses, but is missing that one specific that, again, in my discretion, this applicant needs to have. Okay. And again, in my opinion, that prevents the applicant from being approved, just in my view, because they're missing that one paramount course that I think is so vitally important. In what way are we best to phrase that in our review of the applicant? Can I be that specific? Applicant needs to take a course in boundary control legal principles, period. Or are we more comfortable with applicant is missing sufficient educational coursework, period? Because I think I'm helping them best by saying this is what you need to get my approval in my discretion. Or do I need to leave it somewhat vague and saying, look, you just haven't met the educational requirements, period?
Detail is better, and so you're right. Your instincts are right in that regard, because we want to put folks on the right track, and now that will vary from reviewer to reviewer.
It will, yeah. I understand.
And then just as you're looking at the total application, because keep in mind too that if they've delivered 2 plats and it looks like they applied those the boundary principles, and they've also qualified that they did that work, then it's really hard to say you still need the course, But you, in the course, that would be your judgment. I'm not a land surveyor. I'm not doing those reviews.
I get it.
But and so that still varies. But as long as there's a justification that each reviewer would be comfortable in defending, for deferring or denying application, and again, that would be their discretion, then they would just have to be able to articulate that.
Okay, very good. One last thing, going back to those list of pre-approved courses, you mentioned briefly that it is a living, breathing document. It changes all the times. Courses come and go. Courses get renamed. New schools. Courses get deleted. One thing that I've done is with that list that I've since updated, provided to you at our last meeting, is as new applications come in, I might get Joe applicant from XYZ College of Surveying, and I'm like, oh, I didn't even know that one existed. Let's take a look at the course. Oh, those are great courses. I'll add those to my list based on each application that comes through. It's just kind of hey, let me just kind of drag and drop that in here. So that list that I've just personally maintained grows or shrinks, depends on courses being added, new schools being added, or courses getting deleted, renamed, whatever. How is it best that I keep the administration up to date based on just the tool, the reference form that I use personally?
I would say periodically. You wouldn't have to do that every single time you get a course.
I wouldn't think so.
Yeah, and because you can still exercise your discretion. Again, we're not relying on the that job aid,
relying.
And that's the expedite application. So in that regard, we're not blocking anybody from entering in. So there's no haste. We're not trying to rush an update because people are waiting on the update. So I would just say at your discretion, as you want, quarterly, yearly, whatever you're comfortable with, you can just send those updates and then
That'll work. Yep, excellent. All right. Any further discussion on that?
Well, I would like to interject on that just a bit
Sure.
of my own take onto it. And Jay, I think you're absolutely right. There are looking through an application and their courses there. In my own mind, there are certain courses that I see that they don't have that I feel very strongly about. I think that can be with our own judgment that we have the latitude to approve them anyway, if they can explain that their experience is such that they have covered what I wanted them to learn from that class. But that may take a request to them. I mean, I don't think they would automatically put that into it, but I mean, I think that's if we were to do a deferral, that's a legitimate request to make, that if you have something in your experience that you can tell me why you've already got it. As far as something like legal principles, that's very hard to tell that they follow legal principles just from the finished product of the plat. That's more of having to see how they got to that answer. But they can give a short explanation. I think it's critical that we have a list out there available to the public, because they've got to have some guidance of how to start this path toward licensure.
And Gary, I appreciate
necessary, and even the schools that are wanting to develop these programs, they need some help onto it, something that they can rely upon. That yes, I did all this, and then I have a right to expect to be approved because I did those things. But it is, I think, both the letter that went out back in whenever, I guess this is the original letter. I don't really saw a date on it. I think it goes quite a ways back. And the one that Jay has rewritten a bit, say that very adequately to me in both ways, that this is just for guidance, that, we have board members in the past or present have gone through these lists and these classes and feel comfortable with them, and that expedites things and helps out the rest of the board when we review them, that we have a list that somebody has already looked at that we trust. And as long as that we make it clear that it's not an absolute, and that our judgment does come involved into it, that we're following what the statute requires us to do.
Gary, thank you for your comments.
It would be helpful, and I'll put this out as a formal request once I have time to think about it, Glenn. I think it would be helpful if we had a few suggestions of how to word those requests so that we're not misleading folks into thinking that they've done something wrong, or that we're following an absolute list and their school just doesn't happen to be fortunate enough to be on it, so that they understand that what we're really asking for is more detail from them to be their own advocate, to explain to us why that course that we're not familiar with satisfies what we're looking for.
Yeah, you make a great point. And one thing that we can borrow from some best practices from some other boards, the appraisers, when they're they do an experience interview where they look at their appraisal reports, and they sit down and over the phone or virtually, and they go over their reports and just have a discussion back and forth with them. And then they ask all those questions because they can get a really good feel about what their competency level is at that level. And so, that's something that you certainly can do. I mean, if you're not, we don't have to sort of operate in a, in those gaps. So we can reach out directly. And trust me, they're eager to talk to the person that's going to be doing that review because they want to make their case. And so, we just forward that contact information to the potential appraiser and the reviewer, and then they meet up and have that conversation over that work that's before them, and then they make a recommendation. So this board can do something along those lines as well to sort of beef up that process a little bit, if you like.
Okay, I'd like for you to send us something, kind of a further explanation of how to do that without violating public hearing rules and everything, because there are a few of them I would like to just call up and say, I don't quite understand what you're saying here, and help me out, because at the end of the day, I'm trying to figure out some way to approve them.
Yeah, they can have that conversation direct with one board member. It's just if you bring another one into the room, that's when you run afoul of sunshine law. So, yeah. And then what happens is in open forum, and this is where we take the results of those interviews and then publish those in our minutes. I'll have a experience interview section, and then Jay recommends that we approve this person. Jackie recommends the approval of this person, and then the board votes to approve that slate.
Okay. That sounds good.
Good to know. Good to know. While we're kind of on the same topic, and before I lose it in my mind, can you give us an update on the public hearing for the for the modified rule changes on 08-2003? I know we're supposed to have that second public hearing. It got postponed once, maybe twice by now. What can we do to make this happen?
Yeah, I'll defer here to I'll set up Stewart here, but it was reset due to August, just due to delays in approvals, and there's some of that's just bandwidth too. Some of the unfortunate timing of being right here along the same time as legislative session.
Oh yeah,
and so those tight lines are tight.
Yep.
And so
I get that.
Rules, administrative sort of procedures, that's sort of a second rung, so decision makers are going to hit that. So, but to Stu.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add. I mean, that's basically what's happened, is that we're trying to push it through as quickly as possible.
So, are we on the agenda for the next meeting, or are we not even that sure of it?
I can't even give you.
Can't even give me that. So we're not even on the agenda for the.
I'm
August
pushing for
meeting,
2023.
For 20. Okay. All right. All right. All right. I can tell you that is by far the most asked question. There is no doubt about it. I'll go to local TAPS meetings, things like that. The first thing they want to know from me, what's the latest on the rules changes? Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah. So, all right. Whatever we can do to expedite that would be helpful. But I understand.
That pretty much concludes what I had to talk about on the things I submitted for discussion. I would appreciate any comments or thoughts that the other three board members have on this. Submit them into Glenn, because I'd be really interested to be sure that we have something where I'm positive that I'm on the same page of music as the rest of y'all are.
Yeah, I certainly plan on doing that, Gary. I'll kind of go through and review what you produced here, and I'll just submit it through Glenn, and we'll work it out that way. But just on the surface, everything I've seen right here looks about the same that I understand it as well.
I just had a question for you guys.
Yeah, Kev.
Of the 5 avenues to achieve licensure, what is there a most common? I mean, what's the breakdown of those, or is that hard to say?
It's all across the board. It's all across the board. Yeah,
I suspected that might be the case.
The category 1s are the ones I love to see. Those are the easiest.
Right, yeah.
I'm like, oh, this will go quick. The category 2s and 3s, that's a full review of transcripts.
Yeah.
That's when I refer to my tool. That list of courses are pre-approved.
Yeah.
That could go anywhere. Probably the most challenging is probably those, the 2 and 3s. The 5 is a challenge only because the length of time, if they were to follow through that, and then the magic date of, I think it's June of 2017, I think, were they before or after? Gotcha. That gets a little confusing, but right. There's 5 pathways, and then we see every bit of everyone.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I didn't know if maybe
By
the
far.
one pathway may be.
Jackie, you may think differently.
No. I will say though, I think we're seeing less and less of the pathway number 5, which is experience only.
Yep. And I think.
Yeah, I think Jay, it may just seem like they're all equal because we get a bunch of them under 1 and 2 that are easy, and then the 4 and 5 spends more time.
Certainly. Yeah, I have to agree with what Jackie says. I'm definitely seeing fewer of the category 5s, the experience path, and I think that is for no other reason than that takes a long period of time to accomplish, And then I'm hoping that those applicants see the value of, hey, it's better if I just go get the education and apply, because number one, they gain that education. Number two, they can apply it with their experience. And number three, it allows them the path to licensure in a quicker way, which is what we want to do, encourage the educational value of what's available to them. So, but I hope that answers your question directly, but yes. So there you go. All right. Anything further there? Gary, you good?
I'm good.
All right. You guys are good there? We can move on to new business? I don't know if we have any. Do we have any new business? Yeah, I did make that one request for a review of the application process. I guess you can call that new business. I can't think of any items off the top of my head for new business for discussion here unless y'all have something. Gary, anything you want to throw in there?
No, I think we kind of covered what I say. I spent a lot of time just writing my thoughts down so that I could show you where the direction I was taking, and I'm not sure whether it makes me feel good or worries me that we were all thinking very similar.
Good thing. It's a good thing. We'll go that way.
Okay, it's a good thing, but yes.
Glenn, anything to add?
No, sir.
You good there? Okay. All right. With that, I think usually the last item before adjournment, we discuss PDHs. A little bit after 10 o'clock, we'll go with one PDH for today. I think that's pretty easy.
Just need a motion in that regard in a second.
I move for one PDH.
I second.
All right. Motion second. Further discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There we go. One PDH at Lawrence. Very good. Unless there's anything to add, I guess we're here for adjournment.
We just, since I don't know, we got a second on the motion for agenda, so maybe just to be safe so Stuart doesn't beat me over the head later, we'll just do a motion for adjourn.
Motion we adjourn.
Excellent.
Second.
All approved say aye.
Aye.
Out.
Thank you, gentlemen.
That's always the easiest vote of all.